Let's pretend for a moment that you are navigating a boat on a vast sea. The waters seem unmanageable, so your boat is rocking back and forth and you're barely able to steer. You are doing everything you can to keep your boat above the waters, and you hold on to the wheel for dear life. Your body is tensed up and you really don't have a plan. You're just steering back and forth trying to navigate the waters to the best of your abilities. So as raging of the waters is also your mind. As violent as the sea is also the way that your mind is creating thoughts in those moments. All you have are your instincts. During that chaos, creating a practical plan seems to elude you. You are thrown in the middle of chaos. Now pretend that you are in the same situation, but your mind is clear and you are calm. You are able to look out and around you to develop a quick plan. You're now able to look up and out past the wheel, able to see a little bit of what's ahead of you. Now imagine, if you will, that the sea is your emotions when you're in a chaotic situation and everything is moving so fast that your mind doesn't have time to process the things that are taking place. So in these cases, most people will fall back on their animalistic instincts. Their behaviors are that of the unconscious patterns that have been previously created. In these moments, there isn't time to reflect on the best way to handle a situation like this. So we fall back to our instincts. Our instinctual nature is that helps us survive and navigate perceived threats. This is the part of us that has helped humanity survive for so long. Now, in a situation like this, our instincts would be beneficial. However, in a more modern society, these same instincts are that can get us in trouble. Because while we may see a situation as being threatening or chaotic, another perspective from another individual is that they may not be in the same emotional turmoil. Therefore, their responses and reactions would be different. Now, let's say that your perceived life threatening situation is in a social environment. You are put in a position where you need to defend yourself and protect yourself. Those same unconscious instincts are what come to the surface. It doesn't matter that your life is not actually being threatened, because the perception is that you are being threatened. Whether or not it's life or death is not relevant. So then, how does one person remain calm in such a situation while another becomes very agitated and overreactive? No matter what perception you have, both can be perceived as threats. Yet one individual handles it in a very calm manner, while another is very reactive and responsive and even attacks in response. Or maybe they don't attack, but they shut down completely. So if these instincts are unconscious, then how do you choose to elevate them? Ask yourself, how do you typically respond in a situation where you feel threatened? If you are reactive and later end up regretting it or feeling as if you could have responded in a better way, then maybe it's time to look at elevating that. If you shut down and suppress everything and later feel victimized, maybe it's also time to look at elevating that. When you handle it in a cool, calm, and collected way, do you feel empowered by that? Typically, the latter would be, yes, you do feel somewhat empowered, but more so you feel unaffected, basically. Not empowered so much, yet unaffected. Now, if you were able to look at all three of these situations, which one would you choose? In most cases, I think that an individual would choose to either feel empowered or unaffected. So, what are some techniques that you can employ to develop these instinctual reactions? Reactions might be too strong of a word because I don't even think it's a reaction. I think it's just a way of navigating. There is a resilience in it. This comes from being emotionally strong within yourself. Someone that feels emotionally strong within themselves do not feel the need to defend or protect something that they don't feel threatened by. So then what are some things that you can do to develop these skills? Let's first address what the unconscious state means. The unconscious is your natural state. It is based on experiences, habits that you've created throughout your lifetime experiences. They are typically learned through the environment and through those that you have surrounded yourself by. So most of your unconscious states have been learned through others. So then ask yourself, what are the things that you do when you are alone? What are your habits? What are your thoughts? When you're alone, what kind of things do you typically do when no one else is looking? That will give you a general basis of what your unconscious patterns are. Oftentimes, our unconscious patterns come out in very subtle ways when we are with others. They can range from anything being eye contact to the way you project your voice to the way you carry your body. These unconscious patterns are first developed within and then projected outside of us. They then become behaviors and actions. Now, if you can accept that these unconscious patterns were not created and chosen by you, you can also make a choice now of what you want those to look like going forward. If your experiences in the world have been where you've had to defend yourself a lot, then oftentimes we'll carry unconscious thoughts that the world is cruel or abusive or challenging. Then it becomes a response to where we walk through the world closed off and protective. This limits your experiences because you're not as open and willing to embrace new situations. You're not willing to engage with strangers because they could be potentially threatening. Ultimately, this creates limitations of opportunities and the ability to create new connections. When you create this bubble around you, it is a self contained bubble of past experiences. And stepping outside that bubble, it can seem scary. It creates a sense of vulnerability. But the only way to develop new patterns is to step outside of that bubble. And to create new patterns, you have to create new experiences where you're able to respond differently so that you can develop a new sense of self and new skills in responding to those situations. So, yes, it creates an opportunity to have conscious awareness of a new sense of self in the world. First, it takes the willingness to desire a new experience and a new expression of yourself. Each time you give yourself the opportunity to respond differently, you create a new sense of self. Your perceptions of yourself begin to change and shift. So, the first thing that you want to do is consciously become aware in your mind of how you would like to show up, how you would like to respond in certain situations. And most of us have responded in ways that we've later regretted. And so we can identify another way that we would have preferred to show up. If we can look back on those situations and reflect, we know how we would have preferred to show up. Now that I have a clear picture of what that looks like, how would I have preferred to show up? Now let's pretend that you did show up that way, that you did respond the way that you would have preferred once you had time to reflect on it. How do you feel about that? How does it feel that you were able to respond in the way that you wanted to? Do you feel proud of yourself? Do you feel empowered? Do you feel like you can just walk away from the situation and not give it another thought? Do you feel like you showed up in more grace and tact? And that is probably the ways that you would like to show up all of the time. You can develop those skills with time and conscious awareness and willingness to do that. Now that you have a clear picture of how you would prefer to respond and how you would feel in doing that, now you have to give yourself the opportunity to engage in situations that provide that ability to try this out. You have to step outside of your bubble and begin to develop those skills. The more opportunity you give yourself to do this, the more it becomes part of your experience and it becomes an unconscious pattern where you will naturally respond and show up in this way. Now you have chosen consciously the way that you prefer to show up and the way that you want to show up in the world. This is an empowered sense of self because now you have consciously chosen how you want to be and you get to choose to be, and it becomes your natural state. So you have the ability to reclaim your power, reclaim your responses, and consciously choose how your natural state will be. The lasting result is that it will change your perception of yourself, which then mirrors out to how the world also perceives you and how they receive you. So thank you again for sharing your time and space with me, and I will see you on the next video.